The scream of my K9 shadow cut through the stillness of the night like a blade. It wasn't his usual alert bark at raccoons or stray deer. This was the deep guttural warning he reserved for true danger. I dropped my coffee mug, the porcelain shattering against the hardwood, and sprinted to the back porch. Under the silver wash of the moon, I saw her, Karen, the one neighbor who had been a thorn in my side since the day I moved in. She was perched awkwardly halfway over my 6-foot fence, one leg dangling into my yard, the other still hooked on top. She was panting hard, her garden hat askew, as though she'd been caught in a storm. My first thought was, why? She'd complained about my property lines for months, insisting the land at the far edge of my yard technically belonged to her. The HOA had already dismissed her claims twice. But tonight, there she was, scaling my fence like a determined burglar. "Karen, what on earth are you doing?" I shouted, grabbing the flashlight from the porch. Her head whipped toward me, eyes flashing. "You've stolen my land, and I'm taking it back." Before I could answer, Shadow bolted from the shadows, a blur of black fur and muscle. His nails scraped the patio as he lunged toward the fence. Karen's face twisted into pure panic, and she tried to scramble down, but the hem of her jacket caught on a jagged post. Shadow skidded to a halt just below her, barking furiously. It wasn't an attack, it was a warning, but in the tense moonlight, it must have felt like a siege. She yanked hard to free herself, lost her balance, and tumbled headfirst into my yard. The impact was rough. She rolled once, tried to stand, but Shadow moved in front of her, blocking her path. His ears were back, his chest heaving, and a low growl rumbled from deep in his throat. I rushed forward, calling Shadow off, but Karen stumbled backward, tripped over my garden hose, and landed hard. She clutched her leg, her face contorted in pain. The quiet night was replaced by her wailing cries. "Call an ambulance," she screamed, her voice cracking. "Your dog attacked me." I froze, my mind racing. No, Shadow hadn't bitten her. But I could already picture how she'd spin the story to the HOA, to the police, to anyone who would listen. And that was when I realized this was no accident. She hadn't just crossed my fence. She'd crossed a line that neither of us could ever come back from. Red and blue lights flickered across the yard, painting the fence in flashes of urgency. The wail of the approaching ambulance grew louder, followed by the crunch of tires on gravel as 2 EMTs rushed toward us. Karen was sprawled dramatically on the grass, clutching her leg like she'd been mauled by a wild animal. Shadow sat obediently by my side now, his tail still twitching with residual tension. "She set me up," I muttered under my breath, but the EMTs didn't ask. They went straight to her. "My leg." "He came out of nowhere," Karen sobbed, pointing at Shadow as though she were identifying a criminal in a police lineup. "He's vicious." I thought I was going to die. One of the EMTs shot me a weary glance. "Sir, do you own the dog?" "Yes, but he didn't bite her." "She fell." Karen gasped like I just called her a liar. "Fell?" "He lunged at me. I barely made it over that fence before he dragged me down." "That's not what happened," I snapped, stepping closer. "She climbed my fence without permission in the middle of the night. Shadow was just protecting our property." The second EMT crouched to inspect her leg. "No bite marks," he said quietly to his partner. "Looks like a twisted ankle and some bruising." I caught that detail and felt a flicker of hope. But Karen wasn't letting go. "I want the police here," she demanded, her voice sharpening. "This man's dangerous. His animal's dangerous, and he's trespassing on my land." My jaw tightened. "Your land. This is my backyard, Karen." The EMTs exchanged a look, but they made the call anyway. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up, headlights cutting across the yard. Officer Mitchell stepped out, a man I'd seen at a few neighborhood events, always calm but cautious. "What's going on here?" he asked, scanning between me, Karen, and Shadow. Karen wasted no time. "Officer, I was trying to inspect my property line when his attack dog went after me. I barely escaped alive." "That's a lie," I said firmly. "Check the fence cameras. I've got everything on video." That made her flinch, just slightly. Mitchell's gaze shifted to me. "You have footage?" "Yes. Every angle. You'll see she climbed the fence first." Karen's face drained of color, but she quickly recovered, pasting on a wounded expression. "He's fabricating this to cover his guilt." The officer didn't reply right away. Instead, he turned to me and said, "Let's see that footage." I knew right then the truth could either clear my name or drag this feud into a whole new level of war. I led Officer Mitchell through the back door into my living room, Shadow padding silently behind us. Karen's voice still carried faintly from outside as she tried to sway the EMTs with her version of the story. The officer stood patiently as I navigated to my security system's playback. My cameras had been a necessity ever since moving into this HOA-governed neighborhood, thanks mostly to Karen's endless complaints and random property inspections. "There," I said, pointing at the screen. "This is about 10 minutes before you arrived." The footage rolled under the grainy glow of the infrared. Karen could be seen approaching my fence from her side, glancing over her shoulder as if making sure no one was watching. She struggled to climb, her foot slipping once before finally hoisting herself over the top. Shadow appeared seconds later, trotting toward the noise. Karen, mid-climb, lost her grip and tumbled into my yard. The camera angle caught it all, her fall, her scramble to stand, and Shadow blocking her path without ever making physical contact. Mitchell leaned closer. "He didn't touch her." "Exactly," I said. "She tripped over the garden hose. Any injury she has came from her own fall." The officer straightened, his face unreadable. "Mind if I make a copy of this?" "Go ahead." I handed him a USB stick. Just then, the front door opened without knocking. Karen hobbled in, flanked by one of the EMTs. "I need to see that footage," she said, her voice dripping with false confidence. Mitchell didn't move. "Not tonight. This will be part of the official record." Her eyes darted between us, a flicker of unease breaking through. "Official record? He's making this into a federal case over a small property misunderstanding." I couldn't help it, I laughed. "You scaled my fence at midnight, Karen. That's trespassing, not a misunderstanding." Her cheeks flushed. "I was checking my boundaries. The HOA gave me the right." "No," Mitchell cut in sharply. "The HOA has no authority to override trespassing laws. This isn't a civil property dispute anymore. This is criminal trespass." The EMT shifted uncomfortably. Karen looked like she might protest, but instead she crossed her arms and muttered, "You'll regret this." Mitchell gave her a long, level look. "The only person who needs to worry about regrets tonight is you, ma'am." Outside, the night had gone still again, but I knew the storm was far from over. Karen wouldn't just walk away from this. She'd come back with a plan. The next morning, I woke to the sound of papers sliding under my front door. I groaned, already guessing what it might be. Sure enough, when I picked them up, the HOA letter glared back at me in bold, officious font: "Notice of violation, aggressive animal and unsafe property conditions." I read the first paragraph twice, hardly believing it. According to the HOA, my aggressive canine posed a threat to neighborhood safety, and my unsecured property hazards, reference to the garden hose, were a liability. I had 7 days to rectify the situation or face fines and potential legal action. Karen had wasted no time. I called the HOA office immediately. "You've got to be kidding me," I said to the receptionist. "You're issuing violations based solely on her word." "I'm sorry, sir," the woman replied coolly. "But Mrs. Whitfield." I interrupted. "You mean Karen? She hesitated. Mrs. Whitfield provided a detailed incident report backed by 2 witnesses. I almost laughed. Witnesses? Unless those witnesses are my security cameras, they're lying. But the receptionist wasn't budging. You'll have the opportunity to present evidence at the next HOA board meeting. Until then, the violation stands. By mid-afternoon, I saw Karen in her yard, leaning on a cane for dramatic effect, chatting animatedly with 2 other board members. Every so often, she gestured toward my fence and shook her head like she was describing a tragic crime scene. Shadow sat beside me on the porch, ears flicking as if he sensed the tension. "Don't worry, boy," I muttered. "We've got the truth on our side." But truth didn't always win in HOA politics. That night, as I reviewed my footage again, a thought struck me. If Karen was bold enough to scale my fence once, she might try again. I checked my camera's live feed and scanned the perimeter. Nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling she was planning something bigger. The next day confirmed it. A certified letter arrived, this time from Karen's lawyer, claiming damages for emotional distress and physical injury caused by a dangerous animal. The amount? $15,000. I felt my blood pressure spike. This wasn't just about land anymore. She was coming for my wallet, my reputation, and possibly Shadow's future in this neighborhood. As I stood there holding the letter, I realized if I didn't counter her strike now, she'd own the narrative, and I wasn't about to let that happen. The morning after receiving Karen's lawyer letter, I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of black coffee and a plan forming in my mind. She wanted to turn this into a legal battle. Fine. I'd bring more than enough proof to bury her claims. First stop was Officer Mitchell. I handed him a printed transcript of the HOA violation notice and Karen's legal demand. "She's twisting the truth into knots," I told him. "But we have the footage and your own report from that night." Mitchell nodded. "I'll forward everything to our department's legal liaison. If she pushes this, it could backfire hard." Next, I called my own lawyer, Rebecca Hayes, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who'd helped me once before in a zoning dispute. After watching the footage twice, Rebecca leaned back in her chair. "She has no case," she said firmly. "We'll file a counterclaim for trespassing, harassment, and defamation. And if the HOA tries to enforce that violation without cause, we'll pull them in, too." It felt like a gust of fresh air after days of tension. Finally, I wasn't just on defense. By the time the HOA board meeting rolled around, the room was buzzing. Karen sat at the head table, cane propped dramatically beside her, a faint smirk on her lips. A few sympathetic board members hovered nearby, whispering. When my turn came, I stood and placed a small flash drive in front of the board. "This," I said, "is the unedited footage of the so-called attack." I played it on the large monitor for everyone to see. Karen's midnight climb, her clumsy fall, Shadow barking but never making contact, it was all there. I even slowed the clip so the moment her foot tangled in the garden hose was unmistakable. A ripple of murmurs swept the room. One board member leaned toward another, whispering, "He didn't touch her." Karen's face hardened. "He's manipulated the footage," she said, her voice trembling. I turned to the board. Officer Mitchell collected this footage directly from my system that night. He can confirm its authenticity. Mitchell, seated in the back, stood and said simply, "It's real." Silence filled the room. The board president cleared his throat. "In light of this evidence, the violation notice is rescinded." Karen's smirk was gone, replaced with something else, cold calculation. She didn't storm out or shout. She just stared at me like she was etching my name on a list she planned to revisit. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't over. 3 days passed without a word from Karen. No glares from across the yard. No HOA letters, no suspicious figures near the fence. It was unnerving, like the eye of a storm. Then, late one evening, my doorbell rang. Standing there was Rebecca, my lawyer, holding a manila envelope. "She just filed something," Rebecca said, stepping inside. "Not another lawsuit, a withdrawal. She's dropping all her claims." I blinked. "Just like that?" Rebecca smirked. "Not quite. We sent her a preview of the counterclaim we were ready to file. Trespassing, harassment, defamation, plus damages. And we included the part about you having multiple camera angles and police testimony." Her lawyer must have realized she'd lose badly. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by caution. "So, she's done?" Rebecca hesitated. "Legally, yes. But people like her rarely quit entirely. Keep your cameras running." After she left, I took Shadow for a walk along the fence line. The moon was high, silver light glinting off the wood where Karen had climbed that night. I thought about all the hours I'd spent fighting to defend what was mine, time and energy I'd never get back. Halfway down the yard, movement caught my eye. Karen stood on her side of the fence, arms crossed. She didn't speak, didn't gesture, just watched us. The cane was gone. Her eyes were sharp. "Something you need, Karen?" I called. Her lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. "Just making sure you're taking good care of my view." I shook my head. "This view is staying mine." For a long moment, we stood there in the quiet, a fence and years of animosity between us. Finally, she turned and walked away without another word. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. The HOA kept its distance. Shadow basked in long, lazy afternoons by the porch. I reinforced the fence, installed brighter floodlights, and even added a few more cameras. Not out of fear, but because I knew Karen. She might have lost this round, but people like her don't see defeats. They see delays. One thing was certain, if she ever tried crossing that fence again, I'd be ready, just like the night Shadow stopped her cold. And whether she realized it or not, she'd given me something invaluable that night, not just the proof to win, but the resolve to never let her or anyone else take what was mine. If you enjoyed watching Karen's fence climbing stunt backfire, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another HOA showdown. Like this video if you think Shadow deserves a medal, and drop a comment telling me what you would have done if this happened in your backyard.